Welcome to the Creative Penn podcast. I'm Joanna Penn, thriller author and creative entrepreneur, bringing you interviews, inspiration and information on writing craft and creative business. You can find the episode show notes, your free author blueprint and lots more at thecreativepenn.com, and that's Penn with a double N. And here's the show. Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn, and this is episode number 755 of the podcast, and it is Friday the 7th of June 2024 as I record this. In today's show, I'm talking about selling direct, the pros and the cons, and click testing ideas for your books with Steve Pieper. This is a business and marketing focused episode, so that's coming up in the interview section. In publishing and AI-related things, Jane Friedman in The Hot Sheet reports on the US Book Show, where there were multiple discussions around AI in traditional publishing. So yes, it is being discussed everywhere. Some interesting snippets from the report. Mary McAvaney, CEO of Abrams, compared the emergence of generative AI to the birth of the internet. It's going to be that big. It's not going away. The genie is out of the bottle. There's nothing you can do to put it back in. She did say, on the positive side, there is a dearth of capability and time in publishing companies to devote to data analytics, where AI can be enormously helpful, particularly in relation to direct-to-consumer marketing, which of course is interesting for us because as indie authors, we do direct-to-consumer marketing, and that is a lot of what we talk about with AI. And I think it's quite interesting because, of course, publishing is full of book people. Like you and I, we are book people, we love books, but most people are not data analytics people. And look, most technical people don't go into publishing. So in the publishing companies, they miss out on a lot of those types of people. So these tools will be super useful as they are to us. Keith Reigert of Ulysses Press, an independent publisher, did a session and said, if you run a publishing company and you don't have an AI roadmap, it's time to make one. And of course, we are publishing companies. Reigert then offered a very compelling demo, and this is Jane's words, not mine, a very compelling demo of AI to complete common publishing tasks, such as using ChatGPT to write HR or company policies, using Photoshop's built-in AI to customize stock images for book covers, using Claude to analyze and pull out terms for a book publishing contract, which I have done myself with a recent contract. I used Claude to go through it with me and explain things and figure out things I needed to negotiate and the language to use in negotiation. So that was very useful. Or drafting an addendum to a contract, also using Midjourney to create art. And this is from Jane's hot sheet. During nearly every demo, there were audible gasps in the audience at how fast, easy and straightforward it is to complete tasks using AI that would normally take hours or cost even hundreds or thousands of dollars. So thank you to this chap, Keith Reigert, because he has actually put his slides up and a whole load of prompts. His presentation is 20 ways you should be using AI in publishing now. I'll put the link in the show notes, but it is perfectbound.io/page/AI, but I'll put the link in the show notes. That's 20 ways you should be using AI in publishing right now. So that's great. I had a look at his deck and very good to see this being shared in traditional publishing circles. And of course, this is the kind of deep dive stuff I do in my Patreon. One nugget I liked from the slides: prompt engineering is no longer a prerequisite. Instead of trying to engineer the perfect one-line prompt, turn the process into a conversation between you and the model. This is exactly right. You can just talk to it. And actually now you can actually talk to it with your voice. You don't even have to type. And with ChatGPT 4.0 for Omni now available to free users, you can try it for free. The page includes prompts for writing an outline, marketing activities, title brainstorming, and more. So definitely have a look at that. Good to see this being discussed in traditional publishing. I've been using ChatGPT and Claude with my Kickstarter, helping me with a lot of marketing tasks. And yeah, in fact, this week in the Patreon, I shared a behind the scenes video. I'll talk about that later. So in other things, as it relates to creativity and the expansive nature of augmentation rather than replacement, the positive side, check out the Ezra Klein interview with Holly Herndon called Artificial Intelligence. No, Collective Intelligence. It's about making music and the joy of co-creating with AI models. And no one can accuse Ezra Klein of being positive about AI. I don't normally listen to his show because I find him a little bit of a downer, but this was a very good interview. I really enjoyed it. It's about music. So again, sometimes I think it is less threatening for us as writers to hear other artists in other kind of areas co-creating. But yeah, that's good. Also on visual art, have a listen to Claire Silver on the TED AI Show podcast. And the title of that is AI May Take Our Jobs, but not our creativity. And again, for a show that's called the AI Show, the TED AI Show, so far their interviews have been pretty negative. But this one I thought was great. Claire is great. And she starts with the fact that when she was struck down with a serious illness, she had to find a new way to make art. She could not do what she used to do. And she doesn't go into it too much, but it clearly was a very big deal on her life. And she discovered AI. And this message of AI for accessibility is so important. We hear it all the time from people, and Steph Pajonas, who was on here a while back talking about it too. If you can only work for an hour a day, or if you only have limited mobility or limited brain power because of illness or your job, obviously, then making art alongside a helpful assistant can be great. And also, this interview talks about the inspiration of new forms of art that we cannot do on our own at the moment. So as with photography, when new technology was invented in photography and then things like Photoshop and things, new forms of art emerged. So that's Claire Silver on the TED AI podcast. I will put links in the show notes. In personal news, lots of audio this week. I recorded The Extinction of the Nephilim, my short story, which is, of course, because it's me, it's cross-genre. It's an archaeological thriller meets techno-thriller. If I hit a particular stretch goal on the Kickstarter, all backers will get it, or I'll publish it either directly after the launch or sometime soon. I also got the first 3 arcane thrillers back from my human narrator, Veronica Giguere, who narrated a lot of the series. Now, she did them originally like a decade ago, but then I rewrote those first 3 novels in 2022. I pulled the audiobooks, and when I was going to do this Kickstarter for Spear of Destiny, which is book 13, I was like, I really want to do a bundle of the entire audio series. So to do that, I need to re-record those first 3. So this is what Veronica has now done. They're just going through proof listening. They will be out back on all the stores, but also you can get the full 13 book plus short story bundle as part of the Kickstarter in audio as well as print and ebook. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that because I've been wanting to do a mega audio bundle for a while as someone who does listen to audio. And then Jonathan, my husband, he really only wants to listen to audio things when they're like 40 hours long. So now I'm going to have something along those lines. I haven't added it up, but it's 13 books plus a short story. So it's a lot of hours. I've also been preparing my webinar on discovery writing, which I am also selling through the Kickstarter. Perhaps you would like to join me. Here's a bit more about it. Do you find rigid outlines and structured plotting a buzzkill for your creativity? Have you read all the books on plotting, only to find it just never works for you? Do you love to just start writing and see the story emerge? And do you crave that moment of synchronicity where everything clicks into place and you just grin with excitement that the story is going to work? And you have fun figuring out the process along the way. Do you want to lean into your story intuition so you can discovery write with more confidence? And do you want to learn how to use AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude as collaborative tools to keep you in flow for longer? Well, you can join me for this exclusive 2-hour webinar where I'll show you my discovery writing process and how I use the tools. We'll do some writing together. There'll also be a live Q&A. I'm running the session twice, so you can attend whether you're in the US, UK or Australia, New Zealand time zones. And of course, you can get the replay if you buy it. I will not be selling this separately. It's only available as part of the Kickstarter at jfpenn.com/destiny. Now, you don't have to buy the full print edition, silver foil, all of that. You don't have to do that. You can just buy the ebook for £5 and then there's an add-on for the webinar. So you can get it. So basically, you don't have to read the ebook. You could just buy the webinar. Any questions, email me, joanna@thecreativepenn.com. But yes, that is available there. And the webinar will be in July. All the details are on that page. jfpenn.com/destiny. And of course, if you'd like to buy the book, that would be amazing. I'm on the Ancient Heroes podcast this week with Patrick Garvey, or last week as this goes out, talking about my research process for Spear of Destiny, as well as why I love action adventure. So that is the Ancient Heroes podcast. And Patrick also has his own Kickstarter, The Heir of Achilles, and he's a brand new author. So we also talk a bit about that too. I've put a transcript up on thecreativepenn.com so you can read it if you prefer. Plus, you might have noticed the extra in-between-isode this week on writing action adventure. Several people emailed to say the tips are useful, whatever your genre. So I hope you enjoyed that. As I record this, the Kickstarter is just over £8,200, which is around $10,000 US. I'm really pleased with that, and there are still 11 days to go. So thanks for all your emails and comments this week. Elizabeth said on the Seasons of Writing with Jacqueline episode, I have been trying to incorporate this idea into my life and loved hearing about it as it applies to creativity. Winter is for hibernating, resting, spring you start planning, summer is for being social and enjoying, and in fall you're taking stock and settling up for the winter. I'm going to buy this book and see how I can do more in life and creativity around the seasons. So yes, more evidence that podcasts sell books. Colleen on YouTube around the action adventure writing tips said, I enjoyed this so much. Useful and interesting. Would love to have more. And of course, that episode had a lot of clips from author interviews I've done over the years in. It was only like 35 minutes, but it took forever to make. So seriously hardcore amount of work doing that. But I agree, it was fun and I enjoyed it. So I might do another one, but it is pretty intensive. Also, lots of people emailed me about Hamilton and how much it means to them after I said I took my mum to see it and we really enjoyed it. Lisa said, Hamilton is a big obsession for me, especially since here in the US, the irony of the struggle for freedom and to create our constitution strikes deep. Hamilton always lifts me and reminds me of what we can be if we continue to push forward. And finally, Corinne on Adam's episode on mindset and video, she said, loved this episode, one of my favourite yet. Adam is both reassuring and inspiring, a testament that you can adapt to the age of video and achieve a stable income doing so, all at very low cost, so long as you're willing to learn new skills, challenge yourself and maintain a nimble mindset. Fantastic. So please leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or on the YouTube channel. Message me on X at thecreativepenn or email me, send me pictures of where you're listening as well. I haven't had some pictures for a while. Joanna@thecreativepenn.com. I love to hear from you. It makes this more of a conversation. So today's show is sponsored by my community at patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Thanks to the 6 new patrons who've joined this week. Thanks to everyone who've been supporting for months and years. If you join the community, you get access to all the backlist videos, audio, articles covering topics on creativity and AI. There are tutorials, there's mindset, there's business things, there's book marketing things. In fact, last week, as this goes out, I put out a book launch marketing deep dive 48-minute video with slides and audio if you prefer, plus the downloads on all my book marketing elements for the Kickstarter, including prompts for using chat and Claude to help with taglines, podcast pitches, interview help, social media, videos and more. One patron said it was also useful for traditionally published authors as well as indies, and it is for any launch, not just Kickstarter. Coming up this week on the Patreon, straight after this episode, is a video on how I used Steve Pieper's click testing method for both fiction and non-fiction. And I'm going to actually do some more as I record this right now. I'm about to do some more because I find it so useful. The Patreon is a monthly subscription, the equivalent of buying me a black coffee a month, and I drink a lot of coffee, or a couple of coffees if you're feeling generous. You get access to everything, all the backlist elements if you join us. So if you feel you get value from this show and you want more, come on over and join more than 1,100 authors. Thanks to everyone who's been supporting the show for years. Join us at patreon.com, patreon.com/The Creative Penn. Right, let's get into the interview. Steve Pieper is a USA Today best-selling thriller author under the name Lars Emmerich. He's also an entrepreneur and business consultant specializing in digital marketing and selling direct with his course, AMO, Author Marketing Mastery Through Optimization. So welcome back to the show, Steve.
Thank you very much. Such a pleasure to be here, Joe.
Oh, yes. So you were last on the show in January 2023 when we went into your background. So we're just going to jump into the topic today. So it seems like selling direct has gone mainstream in the author community since you were last here. So what do you think has happened to make authors embrace selling direct in a much bigger way over the last, I guess, sort of 18 months?
It's a great question. I think a few things have combined to make it more mainstream, as you say. I think the first thing is that Amazon has effectively capped ebook sales prices at $9.99, and nobody's capped the advertising expenses at any particular number. So it becomes more and more important as ad costs to generate interest in your books as they continue to increase along with everything else aside from ebook prices. It's more and more important to be able to track your metrics and to be able to reach people who are purchasers, as opposed to people who are just merely kind of curious. And so those things are made possible when you sell direct because your store knows exactly who purchases from you. You get their email address, you get their name, your store processes their credit card, and that information can be fed back to Meta, so Facebook and Instagram, to make your ads operate more efficiently and to bring you new purchasers more profitably. So I think that's the first part of it. I think the second part is that we've heard plenty of stories of some fairly high profile authors having trouble with their Amazon accounts, often through no fault of their own. I mean, whenever you run a big enterprise, you have to, such as Amazon, you have to pay attention to the quality of the listings and the quality of the accounts. And you also have to deal with people who are trying to abuse the accounts to make a quick buck. And the only way to do that at scale is algorithmically, which means the machines are making decisions about whose account to close and leave open. And often that happens without any opportunity for authors to, Amazon doesn't even ask them what was happening. You just find that your account has been closed. So I think those things have combined to make direct sales a more viable option for people. The third reason is that we've noticed, and this has been true since I first started selling directly in 2017, whenever you advertise for your direct sales system, there's this beautiful thing called a cross-channel effect where your book advertisements that point to your store so people can purchase from you, they produce sales through your store, but they also get people excited who are diehard Amazon customers, for example. And so they might see your ad for your store, like what they see, but just prefer to buy from Amazon because of convenience or familiarity or whatever else. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal. And in some cases, like a 3 or 4-for-1 kind of deal, depending on who you are in terms of advertising dollars and sales that come in.
Yeah, just coming back on that Amazon cap on $9.99, I actually at London Book Fair talked to an Amazon person and said, look, it's been capped at $9.99 for like forever, right? And this is, a while ago, it wasn't that big a deal, but it is a real big deal now. And I mean, I write nonfiction as well, and nonfiction in particular can take a lot higher prices on ebooks. And I agree with you that this is a bit of an issue. Do you think they'll ever change that cap? I mean, inflation's hitting everything, it seems, except ebook sales.
Exactly. I don't know for the life of me why they haven't yet. It seems in their best interest as well, because they're taking 30% of the sale price. So I don't know what economics they're looking at, what data they have. I mean, I can't imagine they have much data on sales performance above $9.99 because that just doesn't make it, you earn half the royalty above $9.99. So I can't imagine many authors at all have chosen to take that route. So I have no idea why they haven't made those adjustments yet. I mean, I think it's far more appropriate that if there were a cap at that royalty rate, it seems to me that it would be on par with what you typically see traditionally published ebooks priced at, like around $14.99.
Yeah, exactly. So that'll be interesting if they ever change that. I guess they're still trying to push people to subscription for ebooks. But I also wondered whether another thing that's shifted is almost the maturity of the indie author market and also the emergence of different ways to learn. I mean, your course has been around for a number of years now, but there are other people starting to teach. There are, I guess, even people like myself being more vocal about it, even though I sold my first PDF online in 2008. Yeah. but it certainly wasn't the way you do it. So do you think there's also maybe this confidence? I mean, it's been 2007 when the Kindle launched. So we're at 15 years of an indie author market now.
I absolutely think the market has matured. I think in the beginning, the people who did really, really well in the early days of the Kindle were those folks who had a catalog and had their rights returned to them or who had repurchased their rights and had a dozen, 15 or so books to place on the platform, who were mid-list authors in sort of the traditionally published ecosystem. And they found tremendous purchase in the new ebook ecosystem. And there were some really high quality authors there. But I think what's happened over the, like you say, 15-ish years in the meantime, is that many, if not most, really high quality authors, they're just not seeing much economic advantage to the traditionally published route. The royalty split is not attractive. And there's a lot of authors who are in our community who are doing extremely well, who at one point were traditionally published, and their careers only began accelerating when they got their rights back and when they became their own business owner and their own business manager for their career.
So let's, I guess, get a bit more into the benefits and the challenges of selling direct, because you mentioned the data that you get, the cross-channel effect. But what are some other things? What are some of the good things and also some of the challenges?
So once you start getting into the advertisement game, and with 60 million titles available 24/7, 365, at least on Amazon and many other retailers, it's really hard to have anyone discover your books unless you're actively advertising or you're spending a tremendous amount of effort to build a brand, a personal author brand around it. That also works. It tends to take 3 to 5 to 7-ish years to do so. As soon as you get into that ecosystem, you are not just a writer, you are now an entrepreneur. You have to run a real business. You have to pay very close attention to your cash flow. You need to be a professional about how you test and create your ads. The other thing that happens is that as soon as you start spending real money to bring eyeballs to your books, it rapidly exposes any weaknesses in your product quality. And the first exposure that you might have the first inkling you might have that things aren't quite right is that people just aren't buying your books. And so what you find along the way is that you have to pay a good bit of attention to exactly how you're presenting books, both on your Amazon product detail page, but also if you're doing direct sales on your Shopify pages and your sales pages leading to a Shopify purchase. So it opens the door to business operations that many authors lots of us just want to do the thing. We just want to write. But again, in a world with 60 million books, it's fine if you just want to write because you love writing. But if you have commercial aspirations, if you'd like to make a living or you'd like to make additional money on the side, it takes a more disciplined approach, a more methodical approach. And that can be certainly a challenge for authors who are already busy or sometimes holding down day jobs and raising kids and all of those things.
I guess, yeah, I mean, to come back on this, I feel like for many years we did say that we were entrepreneurs because an indie author, and I certainly did, I have a book, Business for Authors, How to be an Author Entrepreneur. So I did use the word entrepreneur. But when I look at now how to run a Shopify store and an e-commerce, essentially an e-commerce business, I think actually we didn't know perhaps we didn't know what we were doing before. So just on that, the process flow of, let's just take, and I think print is a really good example. If you sell a print book on Amazon compared to selling a print book on your Shopify store, Lars Emmerich, what's the difference? Because I feel like a lot of people don't understand the difference.
That's a terrific question. So hidden behind the Amazon paperback purchase is also an Amazon logistics operation to print a copy of your book that is just sold. Or if you have negotiated a wholesale order with a third-party printer and shipped those books to one of Amazon's warehouses for them to fulfill, i.e. to pick from the shelves and package and ship to your customer. All of that's happening behind the scenes if you are selling paperbacks on Amazon, but you have to actually understand how to do those things and set them up so that they function if you're selling paperbacks from your Shopify store. And you should, especially now, we already talked about the delta between book prices and how they've gone compared to advertising costs and how they've gone. So you do need to, depending on your genre for sure, pretty much anything other than romance, you really need to be very serious about a paperback operation as well. And so it opens a few different discussions. There are print-on-demand services, and depending on where you're at, they can make a great deal of sense logistically, but they tend to be quite expensive because they have to do all the logistical things, but also run their company and provide profit for their shareholders and all of those things. So you can hook those up to your Shopify store such that whenever an order comes in, they're just fulfilled behind the scenes for you by a print-on-demand company. The difficulty with that arrangement is that depending on, say, your format size and your page count, your profit margins can be prohibitively thin, and it can be difficult to recoup costs. The other way that folks go, and the other things to think about, is to negotiate a wholesale order to drive your per book cost down, which increases your gross profit per sale. So for every sale at a given price for your paperback, you make more money because your expenses are lower. But what that means is that you either have to fulfill that purchase yourself, meaning you have to pack and ship. Many of our authors do that. Or there are also author assistants who will pack and ship on your behalf. And then there are also third-party logistics companies that will warehouse your titles until sold. And then when they're sold, they will pull them from their shelves in the warehouse and pack and ship them. So there's a host of considerations that you suddenly have to think about if you are selling directly to your readers. And it sounds scary, and it certainly can be. It really helps to have a few tools to help you calculate costs and make heads or tails of the process of finding the right source for your books at a good compromise between cost and quality, also fulfillment time. And you have to look carefully at the prices in your genre to understand if this is likely to, or under what circumstances it's likely to be profitable for you. So as you mentioned, it's suddenly a whole host of things that are really common to an e-commerce business, but have not been as common to the author world, especially the indie author business, over the last, call it 5-ish years.
And I think this is really important because I've had more and more emails recently saying, oh, it's really hard to sell a book on Amazon now. Oh, it's really hard to sell direct. So what shall I do? And I'm like, you could try pitching traditional publishing because, and I think this is really important. And it's important that we emphasize that we are running this e-commerce business by selling direct, because if you do want to work with a traditional publisher, then there is a reason they get most of the money. It's because they also have those logistics set up and all of that. So I do feel like it's a choice to go this way. I use BookVault here in the UK and they have great print prices. And so I find that I actually can make more on selling a paperback than I even do on some of my ebooks in terms of profits, which I think is very exciting. So I guess I would say to encourage people that once you get it set up, this is the other thing, isn't it? Once you get your head around this, you get it set up, it is just to sort of plug and play the next book. I found there's a lot of work up front, and then the work is much less going forward.
That's absolutely right. Once you've figured out how to get it uploaded to your store or to the service, then it's pretty smooth sailing. And BookBault has a tremendous reputation in the UK. They're in the process of expanding over into the US. What they're finding over here is that the shipping, they're subject to the existing printing and shipping infrastructure in the United States, which leaves a lot to be desired. The distances that have to be covered here in the US between customer locations and, say, business locations, those change the economics quite a bit for those printing companies. So it's a bit harder. Here in the US, primarily the print-on-demand company is, at least with a terrific Shopify interface, is Lulu. And I have been extremely happy with their quality. They are expensive, and it does eat into profit margins. So BookBault is a beautiful solution in the UK currently. There's not currently a beautiful solution at my page count in the US for print on demand. It's doable. And a lot depends on the quality of your marketing assets. A lot depends on your marketing assets in general. Like a terrific book is table stakes to be a professional author, and a terrific marketing system and process is also table stakes to be a successful indie author today, I believe.
I kind of think it always has been, but it's just changed. The things that used to work more easily back in the day now, as you say, are more expensive, or just things have changed, or there's more books. Let's just talk about one of the very, very good things about selling direct, which is how fast you get the money. This is such a big deal. I feel like people don't understand it, because if you're traditionally published, you might not get paid for months or sometimes years. As an indie author, you still only get paid sort of 60 days later, 90 days later, sometimes longer, depending on the contract and the system. But I have my Shopify set up to pay me every day. Now, I know some people don't have that. They have it every week or whatever, but I really like making money every day. So talk a bit about the cash flow as well with the print books, because that's also different in terms of when you get the money and who pays for things.
Absolutely. It's so important, so critical not to have to carry your own advertising costs for 2 or 3 months. If you spend $1 today on an ad and it produces a purchase, you want that dollar back, because your credit card company is going to ask for it when your credit card bill is due. And if you're waiting that 60 to 90 day window for Amazon to issue their royalty payment to you for today's sale, well, you have to float that cost. So that either means that you can't advertise to your full capacity. You can't sell as many books as you would otherwise be able to sell, because you can't afford probably personally just to keep paying these ad costs without getting cash flow back. So it's a much, much slower ramp up to selling books at scale when you have to wait up to 3 months to get paid. Whereas if you buy your ads today or tomorrow, like the next business day, that money shows up in your bank account. And I'm like you, I want that money deposited every single day. I love those deposits. And I don't like them sitting wherever they're at. I like them in my account. And so you can pay off that credit card bill for your advertisements every single month, and it just makes everything much healthier. The other thing is that if you're waiting for a royalty payment to come in and you're purchasing your own copies of your paperbacks or your hardcovers to sell, those orders come out of pocket while you're waiting for those royalties to come back. So again, it's just a much slower and much less responsive scaling capacity. And that's important because there are seasons in an author's year and also in an author's career when you catch a bit of a flyer where there's a lot of demand suddenly for what you're offering. And it's really important to be able to take advantage of that. But if you're waiting around 3 months to get the cash available to purchase more books, to sell to the people who want them right now, that's a really frustrating position to be in. So the cash flow management in an author career is 1,000 times easier when you make a sale today and the money shows up tomorrow in your account.
Yeah. And as you say, if you do hit some big thing, like I know someone who had a really massive day on TikTok and let's say you get 1,000 orders for your paperbacks through to your store today, you get that money, but you also have to pay the printer. So one of the confusions that I feel people have is at the moment, you don't have to pay for Amazon. I say you don't have to pay in inverted commas for Amazon to print your book if you go through KDP Print because they take it out of the sales. So you never have to pay them out of your pocket. Whereas when we're selling direct, we're paying for the printing and then a customer pays us. So I feel like this is so important, this cash flow. And if you're doing a massive campaign, then just remember this cash flow management. When does the money come in? When does it go out? But again, once you get it sorted, you can manage this. So I do just also want to talk about when in an author's journey might they consider selling direct through your methods, and you're mainly talking about Shopify, which is quite different to Kickstarter, or some people might be on PayHip. Some people might sell at a local school, for example. So what sort of points should authors consider this?
That's a terrific question. And it's very similar. The platform that you're selling from, whether it's Shopify or PayHip or Samcart, or there's a bunch of them out there, the considerations are quite similar. What we're seeing across our community, and we're close to 12 or 1,300 authors strong in our community at the moment. And we have some folks who are doing really well and can generate a purchase of a bundle of their books for $6, $7, $8 in advertising costs. Those tend to be outliers. What we're seeing on average is that the average cost to bring in a new paying customer is between $12 and $20. And that's a range. It's not like author A gets sales at 12 and author B gets sales at 20. That's a range that every author experiences throughout the week or day or month. There's a lot of fluctuation running any kind of business. And you can tell this just by looking at if you're looking at your Amazon purchases back on the dashboard, some days you sell more books than others. And it's the same when you're selling directly. So that $12 to $20 customer acquisition cost is relatively agnostic to the advertising platform that you're using. We use Meta because they're by far the best. I test these every year. It's been thousands of dollars. And I always wind up I have always wound up at the same place. Facebook and Instagram are where book buyers mostly are, at least from an ad perspective. But when you have to recoup a $12 to $20 customer acquisition cost, that dictates how you need to structure your business. So you have to have enough products to sell to make that profit, to make that money back in profit and then some, so that you keep some for your store. So if you're a novelist and you're selling one or two titles so far, it's really rare to do that profitably anywhere, including on Amazon, but it's really rare to do it profitably if you're selling directly for those acquisition cost reasons as well. So the number of books that you have is important. Each of them have to be professional quality, professional grade. They have to be so good that your readers know that they're going to love them, and tell their friends about them. So that's what you're aiming for product quality wise. And you need a bunch of products that way. So if you write in the romance genre, we see typically around 8 to 10 titles being sort of the price of entry for all the goodness that comes from selling directly to your readers. And in the other genres where there are typically longer page counts and a slightly less voracious reader community, we see in the neighborhood of 5 to 8 titles. It's useful to know too, like what's a sustainable number of titles? And so a good metric for that is, I like to think of it in terms of, I look across our community and I ask myself, what's the smallest number of titles that an author has had and they have used to sell over $1 million worth of their books? And what's magical about $1 million? It's just a nice milestone. But what it really tells you is that their setup is resilient. So it's not like they have a good week and then everything falls apart. To sell $1 million worth of your books, you're in pretty rare air, which means that you have a system that is working really well for you. And you have the right number of high quality titles to work for you. So that number, if you are a novelist, The smallest number of titles that an author has used to sell over $1 million of their books is 8. And if you're a nonfiction author, this is an interesting one. The smallest number of titles that one of our nonfiction authors has used to sell over $1 million worth of their books is 3, but that's a little bit misleading because it was one main title with a workbook and an associated poetry book. So it was like a suite of 3 products. Really, the vanguard was led by that one individual title. So I mentioned that just to give you a sense for what you can expect if you're looking to build a sustainable business that produces enough cash flow to be really interesting and really worth your time. And so those are good numbers, I think, to aim for. If you are topically on point in your nonfiction title, it can be done with a single title. It's really rare. And if you are a novelist, then I would be looking more toward 5 to 8 as the really the point when you can expect, if you're doing a good job testing your marketing assets and elements and testing your books and writing high quality professional titles, that's when you can reasonably expect to start doing so profitably in a direct sales context.
And I'll put a little caveat on this, which is if you have 1 or 2 books, but you still want to do this, you just can't do big paid ad spend. So if you're building up your author brand slowly, you can sell direct just through driving your own traffic through building an email list, or if you have a podcast like I have had for many years, because this is how I've done it. I've moved platforms over the years as things have grown. But I do think that some people are just launching on either Kickstarter or through Shopify, and they don't necessarily have to do a lot of ad spend. They don't have to sell a lot of books. Your course and your system is for the very, very ambitious people who have more books. And that's what we all want. But sometimes if people are starting out now, I wonder if going through the building the store, learning the business can also be beneficial, even if they're not expecting the massive sales, just with the caveat that they're not spending a ton on ads.
Yeah, I believe that's absolutely true. And that's what I meant by the brand building. Like if you're building a brand through podcasts and in emails and newsletters and appearances at conferences and media appearances and such, that is absolutely effective. In fact, that's ultimately where all of us need to end up if we really want to grow into a really recognized and successful brand. I will say that there are certain elements that we teach that are quite important no matter where you are in your author career. So it's not like you should wait to engage with paid ads until you have 8 titles or 5 titles. It's actually kind of tragic to do that. And the reason is that we tend to overestimate the quality and marketability of our own work. And so one of the worst situations, I see it unfortunately over and over again, where people come into the community with lots of titles, which need lots of work. And so the way around this is not to ask your friends if they like your work, or not to ask your family members if you're going to be a star author, but to test your ideas in front of total strangers who are known to read in your market. And this is different than sending a survey out to your email list. It's, again, different to asking people in person for feedback because they're solving a different equation. They're thinking about their relationship with you and your feelings. And so they're not directly answering this question, would you buy this right now? That's the question. And you can't ask them directly. You just have to put things in front of them that give them the opportunity to show you, yes or no, how resonant, how effective your messaging is. And so we do this, and the name of the process is called click testing. Click testing has been used in about 75 plus different industries. It's helped to drive over $1 billion, including a $200 million per year in extra revenue. It's a way to test a number of your ideas very quickly, but also with high fidelity and a pretty high level of precision. And one of the things that we discovered, and this is like 800 authors, 6,000 tests, 50,000 different individual testing elements. One of the really interesting things that we've discovered is that only about 5% of our ideas are good enough to move forward with profitably. So one idea out of 20. And an idea might be a hook or a tagline or a title or a subtitle. One idea might also be an image or a cover image. And so it's extremely important to de-risk everything you're doing, in my opinion, whether it's advertising to bring traffic to existing titles that you have, or if you're still building your catalog and still writing, we found that it's quite important to de-risk those future titles by testing your book ideas. And the process, again, that we use to do this is called click testing. It was is the foundation of our direct sales program, which is aimed at people like we talked about, who have a number of high quality titles and want to build a serious e-commerce business around them. Click testing, on the other hand, benefits and has benefited authors selling anywhere from $0 per month upwards of a couple $1 million per year. And it's actually quite a simple process that just involves running advertisements and treating them in a special way as experiments. We run them for a brief period of time, and we have a very specific number of impressions that they're shown for. That's just like the number of people who get to see them. And then we just look at the performance metrics of these little advertisements to guide us, to give us an understanding of whether or not that particular idea is worth pursuing either as an advertisement or, even more importantly, worth pursuing at all to make a book out of or to include in your next book. So the beginning of that process, of the direct sales process, actually is click testing, and it applies to pretty much anyone at most spots inside of your author career trajectory. So whether you're already selling a lot of books, we've got folks who are multi-million-dollar a year sellers who have really dramatically improved their profit margins, so they took a lot more home. And we've got folks who are beginning, who had financially successful titles through testing the ideas and the concepts. And it's not just the ideas and concepts, it's also the specific words, as writers we know this, but it's also the specific words that we use. So that's a really important way to think, in my opinion, about if you want to do this professionally and if you want your work to be read, it's really important to get midstream and early stream feedback on whether anybody might be interested in reading this book once you're done with it.
Yes, and I wanted to talk to you because I have been through the click testing module, and I've always been pretty resistant to this. You know, I tried your course a while back, and it was a lot of data. And so I'm not a massive data person, but I did this click testing process and I actually found it quite fun. And I'll tell you what's different now, and this will help people listening, is ChatGPT. Because you're right. I was like, I can't come up with 15 different taglines. I just can't. My brain can only think of one or two taglines, or maybe I can't think of any. Maybe I can only write 70,000 words. I can't put it all into like a tagline. But I use ChatGPT to come up with a lot of the variants for the click testing. And I don't think if I put this on my email to you, but I changed the tagline for Spear of Destiny, which as we speak right now has just launched on Kickstarter. It's already funded. So, I mean, who knows whether that tagline made all the difference, but I certainly changed it because when I split test it, I did the click testing, and I put in whatever it was, 15 different variants or however many it was. My one, the one I came up with originally, it performed like number 8 or something out of the list. And so I switched it to the one that tested better. And I did that to a market that I normally sell to. So this is what's interesting. This was a Kickstarter tagline. This was not necessarily a whole advertising campaign, but it really, really helped me. And I guess the other thing to say, because we talked before about the conversion ads, which were more expensive, these are click ads. So it doesn't cost you that much to do these tests, does it?
No, not at all. In fact, we just run at a relatively low budget of $30 per day, and each test, and I recommend 6 of them, The number is 6 if you're a novelist or storyteller, or if you are a nonfiction author who solves problems for people or a problem solver. So each of those tests lasts 1 to 2-ish days at a $30 per day ad spend. So the whole thing is done in like 2 weeks. And maybe you've spent $200 to $300 to de-risk your title, or maybe you've spent $200 to $300 total to arrive at a really high converting advertisement. And like you mentioned, the things that you learn about what people like, they're not just useful on the book itself or on the advertisement itself. They're useful everywhere you're interacting with your customers. So in your case, on the Kickstarter page, also on your product detail page, whether that's on your Amazon product page or on your Shopify product page. Also, if you're doing lead generation and you're getting people to sign up for your list, what you discover to really resonate and really get people excited in your click testing, guess what? It also gets them excited on the sign up page. Or if you're bringing people to a sales page in a direct sales kind of scenario for your bundle or for a trilogy that you're offering in paperback or whatever, those elements, they really go a long way toward improving every aspect of your business. You include them in your emails. You include them if you're making videos, if you're writing blog posts. It really is useful when you find, kind of beyond a shadow of a doubt, the confluence of your particular voice and what you have to say, and also what resonates with your market. Like, it's really nice when you feel good about the things you're saying to your market and they really respond to it. So it's a really cool tool that way.
Yes. So because we're talking about Meta here, we have to talk about what's been going on recently. So we're recording this at the end of May 2024. And the word in the author community in the last month has been the Metapocalypse, where authors have seen a drop in revenue and effectiveness of Facebook ads. Now, my personal thought is that Meta are rolling out a lot of AI tools and they're trying to make it easier on us. But these experiments have caused issues. A bit like any of these changes, it's going to have an effect. But some people have kind of freaked out, gone back into KU with their ebooks, wondering if it will ever come back. What are your thoughts on, I guess, the short term, but also the long term impact? What will change and what should authors be doing?
This is such a good question. I've been advertising online since 2003. Back then, there wasn't just one search engine. There were like 6. So I was advertising on all of them, different business, but different ecosystems. They all sort of had their ups and downs. And then the advent of first Facebook and then Facebook and Instagram ads now under Meta. And those became a real player for us in like the 2015, 2016 ballpark, maybe 2014 even. And I look back and about twice a year in some community, someplace, there is the Metapocalypse kind of meme that circulates. And it's really important to understand that in any community of businesses, and authors are no different, at any given moment, we've got authors in our community who are having their best month ever. And we have authors in our community, same month, same advertising platform, who are not having good months at all. So there's this continuous up and down in any business. Ours is no different. One of the things that sort of determines which industry takes up the kind of meme like the sky has fallen in Facebook land is just which individuals are having a rough month. If it's somebody with a prominent platform and they're writing about it, or somebody who's got a course on something and they're having their turn in the barrel, as they say, for a rough month, it can really feel like things are out of control and we need to make drastic changes. But let me give you a resource that will stop this kind of anecdotal spread of information which may not be accurate. So there are a couple of analytics companies who only exist. They connect to your Shopify store and they connect to all of the different ad platforms. So they see every dollar that thousands upon thousands of e-commerce businesses are spending on every relevant ad platform. And they see how much a click is costing, what are the click-through rates, how much does it cost to bring in a new customer? And because they have such a broad view across all the advertising platforms that are relevant to e-commerce and across so many different niche e-commerce stores, it actually gives you a real sense of what's going on. And so the resource I'd like to point everybody to is northbeam.io. So north like the direction, beam like laser beam, northbeam.io. They have a media buyer newsletter. And what they do is they send out monthly their statistics. And so the May meme that the sky has fallen in meta land in the book world, that was on the strength of April's results for better and worse. And it was really interesting because the recent Northbeam Media Buyer newsletter, which rounds up you can see exactly what market share exists on like Meta versus Google versus YouTube versus TikTok. And you can see trends in whether it's become more expensive or less expensive, more profitable or less profitable. And the April 2024 results were better than the April 2023 results. So from that perspective, there was no metapocalypse this year, which is really interesting. You can see the difference between what happens like socially and anecdotally. We're just, when we talk to each other, but we don't have the ability to see what's actually happening from a numbers perspective. But when you fold in that data, it really helps you make more informed decisions. So, and how would I use this differently? Like if that data came back and said, oh my gosh, April 2024, it was 25% more expensive than it was in 2023. Things really are looking bleak. I would consider making significant changes to my business, to the structure of it, to the strategy of it. But given that it came back, actually April 24 was better than April 23, numerically speaking, that's different. Then my action is, okay, it sounds like I just need to work harder to test newer creative, maybe test newer hooks, new images, things that are resonating now, because culture moves at a pretty quick pace. So things that worked, they work for a shorter period of time now because things are moving so quickly in media and culture. So it's important to be able to make strategic decisions like that with actual information. And it's not like pages and pages and reams of data. It's summarized usually just in one chart and fits on your phone. So I recommend that everybody who's buying ads in the book world subscribe to that northbeam.io. I'm not affiliated with them. I just think they're awesome. Northbeam.io. And it's called the Media Buyer Newsletter. So that'll keep you from making emotional knee-jerk reactions that you could live to regret.
Yeah, I think, again, it comes back to what we were saying at the beginning around being an entrepreneur and having a real business. And the reality is it's not all up and to the right forever.
That's right.
Unfortunately, not everything is like that all the time. It goes up and down and things change. And that's part of the fun of it too. I mean, if it was always the same, then it would be so boring. So this is certainly interesting. And as I said, I find the course great. You're a great teacher and you've recently redone the whole course. So tell people a bit about the course and who it's for and who it's most suitable for, I guess.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So there are two programs, and the front door for everybody is click testing. And because I've just seen almost universally positive results in a whole bunch of different industries. And the reason that the results are positive is because you're learning more about what your market wants. Like, what do the people actually want and respond to? So it doesn't matter where you're at. If you're working on that first book, you would definitely want some information that your market is excited about the ideas that you're spending so much time and effort and energy and probably money and love to produce. And also, if you're selling well but would like to increase your profit margins, or you'd like to be able to advertise more aggressively to produce more sales, but to do that, you have to be able to advertise more effectively, click testing is for you also. Like I say, it's helped people who have 0 books and are making $0 per month. And it's helped people who have many books and who are really big names, not just in the indie community, but out in the world, in the author world. and it's improved their the number of books they're able to sell and the profit margin they're able to sell it at. So that's called Click Testing for Authors. And that's the introductory program. It's the foundation for everything. And the reason it's the foundation for everything that we do inside of our processes is because it teaches you what your customers like. And that's really important. And for a subset of folks who have the number and quality of titles that we spoke about earlier, there's a follow-on program called Direct Sales for Authors. Those two modules together are inside of version 4 of MO. But Direct Sales for Authors really hones in on the nuts and bolts of setting up a direct sales system. It gives you a bunch of tools to help you calculate your paperback costs, for example. That can be a hassle. So we put some spreadsheets together to do all that math for you, because people who write aren't always people who love to do math. So that's taken care of for you. And we also walk you through the process of getting your assets to work profitably. It's one thing to set everything up so that it functions, i.e. when you put your credit card in, a book comes out on the other end of that, right? That's one thing, but getting that process to operate profitably is another thing entirely. It's a whole process in and of itself, and there's some art and science to it. So we provide tools for that, for those folks who are interested in building a direct sales business and interested in doing so at an exciting kind of scale based on the number of books that you have. So there's really two programs. The first one is Click Testing for Authors. That's for everybody under the sun who writes books, in my opinion. And then the Direct Sales for Authors is a more focused program for those folks who are in a position to most immediately benefit from a serious direct sales effort.
Fantastic. And if people would like to use my affiliate link, I'm a happy affiliate. I have done the course. I think it's great. It is thecreativepenn.com/click testing, all one word, thecreativepenn.com/click testing. And where else can people find it? I always like to give people the actual link because, of course, we don't expect people to go through my affiliate, and also tell people where your books are as well, because you are a real author, and I think that's really important.
Yes, thank you. So please do use Joanna's affiliate link. Let's support Joe's podcast and her efforts and everything that you have done for our community for all these years. But if that's not your thing, perfectly fine. moauthor.com, AMMO, like author marketing mastery through optimization. moauthor.com is sort of the front door. And if you want to check out my trashy spy thrillers, they're at lars.buzz, LARS.BUZZ.
Or ZZ, if you are.
Or ZZ, you're right. Depending on if you're the correct side of the pond or the incorrect side of the pond, right?
Right. Well, thanks so much for your time, Steve. That was great.
Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it.
So I hope you found the episode with Steve useful. And of course, selling direct is not for everyone because of the investment in time and money in building an e-commerce business. But click testing certainly can be used at any stage of the process to test ideas or drive traffic to retailers or your website. You can check out the course with my affiliate link at thecreativepenn.com/click testing. And if you want to see my click testing efforts for fiction and non-fiction, join the community at patreon.com/thecreativepenn, as there will be a video available shortly after this goes out. And of course, if you want to join me for that discovery writing webinar, buy the bundle or the ebook plus add-on at jfpenn.com/destiny. As ever, I love to hear from you. Please leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or on the YouTube channel. Message me on X at thecreativepenn or email me, joanna@thecreativepenn.com. Next week, it's back to craft and mindset as I talk about writing through fear with Caroline Donahue. In the meantime, happy writing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You can find the backlist episodes and show notes at thecreativepenn.com/podcast. And you can get your free author blueprint at thecreativepenn.com/blueprint. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on Facebook and X at The Creative Penn, or on Instagram and Facebook at JFPennAuthor. Happy writing, and I'll see you next time.